Not the Footy Show.
Forward sizzle.
So when I gave him a call this afternoon, I said, it's Origin time. And you've never... Actually, he must have known it was going to be an Origin phone call because it went about 1.5 rings and it was like, hello? Origin? Origin? Do I smell Origin?
Hancock gets it on. Queensland are coming back. Darren Smith for Lager. Lager gets it away. Here's the big fella. Gets the pass on. Coyne goes for the corner and gets the try. Queensland. It's a miracle. Oh, yeah. What about that one? Stella. Unbelievable.
G'day, everybody. Welcome to episode 289 of Not the Footy Show. You got Warrick, Nicolson, you got Robb Cox lounging as always in his bedroom. It's where he does his best work on this podcast. And speaking of good podcasts, apparently our last one was half decent because it went well on YouTube. So as a reward for you fantastic people that have found our podcast, we're talking Origin, we're talking New South Wales team, we're talking the form New South Wales team, and I've got Coxsmith to do some homework. You don't like doing homework, do you, Coxsmith? It's been a while.
No, it's never happened before. I've always avoided it. So
yeah, I've got some pull.
Homework tonight.
So when I gave him a call this afternoon, I said, it's Origin time. And you've never... Actually, he must have known it was going to be an Origin phone call because it went about 1.5 rings and it was like, hello? Origin? Origin? Do I smell Origin? So Coxsmith is very keen to talk Origin. And we discussed this. And it's like, if you're coming here for a Queensland Origin special, you're going to be disappointed. Because, let's be honest, the straw that stirs the content drink when it comes to Origin is the New South Wales team. Is that a true statement, Coxsmith?
Well, yeah, I mean, and the reason we know that is because they're forced every year to name their team first.
Mm.
So, I think that Queensland... Look, Queensland don't change their teams too much, so there's not as much controversy around their team. And New South Wales, not winning last year, there could be a few guys on the, walking the short plank. And I thought that, I would fall into line and pick a team that I consider is based on form. I didn't go and look at stats. I didn't look at anything. I just thought about what I've seen so far in the first 5 rounds and came up with a team.
So let's not waste any time. People are here for New South Wales team, Coxsmith. Let them pick apart your 1 to 25. Is that what you've put together? 25-man squad? Is it that big?
No, 38. No, I've gone a 19-man squad, which is obviously your 17 and 2 reserves or 2 spares. Okay, I'll kick it off, eh?
Go for it, mate.
Number 1, fullback Tedesco, James Tedesco. First winger is Suali'i. Second winger is Kuraz from Canterbury.
Yep.
Our centres, everyone will know who they are. Turbo, Trbojevic, Tom, and Latrell Mitchell. 6, Nico Hines. 7, Nathan Cleary.
Yep.
8, Payne Haas.
Yep.
Hooker, Damien Cook.
Yep.
The other front rower will be Barlow, Junior Barlow from Parramatta. Liam Martin, 1 second rower. Cameron Murray, the other second rower. Isaiah Yeo is the lock.
Yep.
And then 14, first man on the bench is Jack Whiten.
Fresh from a suspension. Classy.
He'll be fresh. 15, Olakawatu.
Yep.
From Manly. 16, another Manly player in Gerbo.
Yep.
Jake Trbojevic. 17, Regan Campbell-Gillard. 18, Kaloa Matangi.
Yep.
From South. And 19, a spare hooker in Reece Robson from North Queensland.
Now, before we go into the reasons, which obviously is form, but what's tickled your fancy with certain selections, it's worth mentioning what the team was for Game 3 last year when we lost. It was Tedesco, To'o, and Tupu on the wings, Burton and Stephen Crichton in the centres, Jerome Luai and Cleary the halves, Barlow, Coruscant, Jake Trebojevic, Cameron Murray, Martin, and Yo made up the forward pack. The bench was Jacob Saifidi, Damien Cook, Angus Crichton, and Siosifa Talakai with Jack Whiten as the 18th man. What was the hardest decision you had to make in that team, Coxsmith?
Oh, well, a couple of hard things. Not picking Brian To'o or Josh Addo-Carr was hard because they're kind of my two favourite wingers, I think. The other hard one for mine was really trying not to pick Damien Cook, but I think he's probably the form hooker in the comp at the moment, even though they haven't won all their games, obviously. But I think he's going really strong. I think I think the end of the year last year was a bit of a slap in the face for him. But I was trying not to pick him. I wanted a reason to pick Api Coruscant or another hooker, but I couldn't come up with it. And mate, I don't particularly like Regan Campbell-Gillard that much as a player, but he's playing really well. He's getting lots of meters.
Tremendous.
He's getting big minutes.
Yeah.
So I've picked players I don't particularly like. I've picked players that I think are probably some of the best in their positions for and I mean I haven't. Carraz is an exception, but I haven't picked too many rookies that are going well either. I've picked players that I thought were going really well and could do the job, not just purely based on
so
form.
You've got three.
After 5 rounds, you're not sure, if they've played tough sides or they've just been breezing through really easy sides. So that's
Three rookies in your team. 3 rookies in your team. You got Kiraz, Suali'i, and Olakawatu would be the 3 debutants if that was the team that Brad Fittler picked tomorrow. Reece Robson and Kolomatangi as sort of the extra men. I look at that team and I'll take you to task on a couple.
Yeah,
Josh Addo-Carr's in better form this year than he was last year when he missed out, and
yes,
I haven't seen what you're seeing with Suali'i.
Okay, I to justify it
on the wing is where I'm talking. It's interesting.
The thing I love about Suali'i is he's just so big, right? And I think he's equally as good as a centre as he is a winger. And who knows where he's going to do in the future at fullback or wherever he goes to play in the rugby union. But I just think he's on the rise. And I think that he's an Origin kind of a player. I think he would really lift in Origin. It pains me not to have a Josh Addo-Carr in this team.
What does he got to do to get past Suali'i, I guess? Or is that more of a, it's form, but you sort of also got an eye on what you'd want in the team? Is that because that's natural that's going to have a bit of an impact on how you pick your team?
Yeah, well, look, I think Carraz. So I think Carraz is a future fullback as well. We tend to pick. We've got a lot of fullbacks in this team.
Nothing wrong with that. Pick the best players. That's the simple rule.
Because really, the back 5 could all be genuine fullbacks. Teddy Suwali, Turbo, Latrell. I think he's more of a centre, but he plays fullback, and Carraz. But for Josh Addo-Carr to get into this team, I mean, I don't think he's far away. I think he probably, for mine, probably knocked Carraz out before he knocked out Suwali. Suali'i, and I think it's just a couple more games, mate. There's a split hair between them. I really went Carraz for the future. There's not much between the Bulldogs wingers at the moment, but I think Carraz has just got his nose in front at the moment. Just because he offers a couple more options too. He could probably play centre or fullback if he needed to.
The thing to keep in mind whenever you're putting a side together is obviously which side does each winger play and which side does each centre play. They picked Tupu for the size last year and never kicked the ball to him. But we also didn't have Latrell. We didn't have Tommy. They make the wingers, no matter who you got there, 10 times better. It's just a fact. I
Right.
mean, you think about Paul Toto, his run numbers were there in Origin last year, but he barely got any good ball. And he also was sitting outside Stephen Crichton, who I just cannot see getting anywhere near the Origin team this year in any capacity, whether a squad member or the like.
It'd take 3 or 4 injuries for him to
It
get
would.
to that team.
I think Toto's not going that badly, but it's a really strange one that Cleary's just committed to that right edge. I know they won a comp last year, but they also won the comp with him at the left wing the year before. I think his position's left wing. They're going with Taruva there at the moment, and it was kind of because they'd made that movement for Taylor May, who obviously isn't playing this year. I'd have Addo-Carr ahead of, on form, and I'm talking about try-scoring form. This is the thing about the Origin element. If I've got Tommy, I've got Latrell, I've got Teddy, I really don't need Carraz's runs as much as I might need someone who can just finish. And that's not a criticism of Carraz's finishing ability. It's just I would pick Addo-Carr ahead of him for his finishing ability. And on form, I think you saw it on the weekend. On Monday night, we were out there, the Fox came up with a couple of plays that, and I'll be banging this door down forever, but he wasn't the reason we lost Origin last year by him not being there. But if he's out there outside Latrell on that left edge, we're scoring some tries. We just are.
No, for sure. For sure.
So I'm happy with him coming in. The other one that is going to fall short, but from a form perspective, I think deserves a mention, that's Campbell Graham. He's had a storming start to the year. He won't force his way into those centres. Could you see him getting the wing spot if Toto, for example, was out and he was... So if Toto was playing on the right and he was injured, could you see Campbell Graham come in on that right wing? Or will they go to Suoli? I know I'm jumping.
Well, they were both in they were both in the squad last year, in extended squads last year. So look, there's a chance. I think Campbell Graham is desperately unlucky at the moment that guys like Trbojevic and Latrell Mitchell are in that team, because if they were out again this year, I would certainly have Campbell Graham on one side, and that's when you think about players like Whiten or Crichton coming into the team. But you've also got Suoli that was Burton, but you've also got Suoli that could probably play centre as well. So I think, like I say, I think Campbell Graham is very unlucky at the moment just to be at the position he's in at the time that we're in at the moment.
And form is a thing. Form is the basis of this particular New South Wales team that you've put together. And he's a bit unlucky. What is fascinating is that's you've got rid of all centres and wingers from last year's Game 3 team. They've all lost their spot.
The centres choose themselves.
They do.
When you've got Latrell and Turbo.
Assuming that Teddy's back and all good, let's hope he is. He's at fullback, and it's just a three-headed monster with Trbojevic, Mitchell, and Tedesco. 5'8". You've punted Jerome Luai, I think, on form. Yeah. Not an argument. Why Nico Hines at 6?
Well, I think Nico Hines can play the dominant role or not. I think he's got that ability to play a slightly secondary role and let Cleary organise, and then he just suits himself and becomes a left or a right first receiver, rather than an organising halfback. But also if Cleary gets injured, then we see Nico Hines come to the fore, and I think Nico Hines offers more as a halfback than Jerome Luai does. I think Jerome might struggle to run the Origin team as the organising halfback, where Nico wouldn't. And I don't think Luai as a secondary player outshines Hines either. So it's probably better to have a spare up your sleeve. And I think Hines is just a bit better at the moment. I know he's only played a couple of games, but
he's definitely in better form.
Jerome Luai hasn't done much this year, mate.
The thing about
Luai,
could
be a World Cup hangover. I'm not sure.
The thing about Luai and Hines that why I lean towards Hines as well. He can play either side of the field. He does regularly, and it also frees up Nathan Cleary, who's the halfback, to play either side of the field, because Nico's got no issues changing sides, and that's probably the biggest challenge that Luai has in the Panther system, is that he's often always stationed on the left. He sometimes sniffs around inside the attacking 20. But yeah, I really like that idea. That's a pretty handy backline you got there, Coxsmith. Payne Haas, we know he's in early season Payne Haas form, where he looks $1 million. He's going to get $1 million, but his ability to run through the season is always the thing I think in question here. He didn't play game 3 last year. I thought we missed him. I'm very happy that he's in good form now. I want him to keep it going. It makes sense to have him and Barlaw up there, the front row. You've got RCG and Tommy on Jake on the bench. That's sort of, I think, warranted because Jake's been great for the Manly, and RCG has probably been Parramatta's best forward, I'd almost argue, this year. You think you touched on a bit?
Yeah, I think you're right. His work rate is just, he's really hit the ground running this year. As we've discussed, Parramatta have been unlucky to lose 4 games from 5. They probably shouldn't be on that kind of a 1-4 stat like they are, but they're certainly playing better than a team that's 1-4. RCG is one of the best in the team. I think he has to be there. I can't think of anyone else that I'd really want there. The Saifiti brothers, to me, as good as they are, I don't think either one of them is better than RCG or has the work rate that RCG can have. And yeah, Jake Trbojevic picks himself, mate. It's a different team when Jake plays. I think he's just a good influence on the team. I like him off the bench. Some people like him playing long minutes. I like him coming off the bench and being an impact player. But he's also that kind of player that if you get an injury to anyone in that forward pack, the front row is
all at hooker as well, mate. He can fill in at hooker as well. He's done it before. Cam Murray's a certainty. So. Isaiah Yeo is a certainty. I always come back to this question, and if I'm going to do this one day, I want us to pick our 25 best players in the game and try and justify it and come up with a list. I think it'd be fascinating. These are 2 players that I just find it so incredibly hard to split. Cameron Murray and Isaiah Yeo. Who's the better player? At the moment, I'm leaning Isaiah Yeo, but during the World Cup, it was Cameron Murray, and it's a really nice thing to have this problem. And there's a comparison I think of growing up, and that was Brad Clyde and Bob Lindner, just champion lock forwards. One was sort of on the up, the other one was sort of the back end of his career, but still, an elite football player. I love Brad because he was a Raider, but there wasn't much splitting those two. And I look at these two and go, very similar trajectories. They're going to be around this New South Wales and then the Australian setup for a while. New South Wales very lucky that they didn't listen to the media and go, you can't pick players out of position. Cam Murray on the left edge. Thank you very much. I love it. But Liam Martin, why have you got him in the team when he hasn't played a game in 3 weeks? And I'll be honest, hasn't.
Yeah, I just like him, mate. I did a captain's call here. I think he's tough. I like his controlled aggression in the team. He doesn't lose his head like some players can. He's only young, but he doesn't lose his head and do silly things. And I just think he fits into that team nicely with the combinations of Yeo and Cleary in that team. I think he fits in nicely. His form before, his form late last year and through the final series and everything like that. I know that this was meant to be picked purely on form today.
Right. Yeah,
and but I do have a captain's call in there, and Liam Martin's mine.
He's very lucky, I think, that Sean Lane's missed the same period of time because the chat around Sean Lane was justified to possibly make the World Cup squad at the end of last year. Comes and plays his second trial, busts his jaw, and I think he's returning this weekend. He's a smoky for the bench, I think, if he has a good couple of weeks because he's got the body to play middle and on edge. And to be honest, I think he could fill in a pinch in centre if he needed to. But that opens the door for Martin to stay in, even on a form situation. There's a couple other young bucks that missed out last year. They made sort of extended squads, but Ola Kawatu, Kolomatangi, Angus Crichton, we know probably is not going to get considered, even if he does come back in the next couple of weeks for the Roosters. Another player I think has dropped off as well is Hudson Young. I think the hype around him last year, it was justified, but he hasn't shown it this year. He's in a team that needs a lift. He hasn't been able to provide it. And I'm not trying to be hypocritical here, but that's just the facts.
Yeah, and I really like him. As you know, I like Hudson Young. You and I a couple of weeks ago or a week ago Actually, you didn't. I did. I sent you an Origin team that I would have had then, and it was just off the top of my head. I was just thinking, who do I want? I didn't even really think about it too much, and I picked Hudson Young. I think he's another player that's an Origin type player, very aggressive, and a real goer. But at the moment, he just doesn't have the form to make my 19 players.
Is there room for Hudson Young and Liam Martin in the same team? Because I think they're sort of
probably
similar.
not. Yeah, probably not. Murray, I like Murray for a couple of reasons, mostly because he's just a worker, and if you need him to, he could probably play 80 minutes. I'm not sure Liam Martin would play 80 minutes. But then it opens up a bench spot for who I've got here, Addo-Carr, to come in. So I don't think Martin and to have them both in the same team, Martin and Young, they'd certainly be at the very best a starter and a bench player. But at this point in time, Young just doesn't get in over the top of Addo-Carr.
I like what I've seen from Addo-Carr. I like what I've seen from Koloamatangi. I want to see it for the next month. And I want your team winning because of your form. That's what I want to see. If you're going to get into the Origin team, those guys are going to have to beat the door down. I don't think it's just going to be gifted to you by any stretch. There's another player here that probably deserves a mention, and that's Ryan Madison. I know he got a chance in game one last year and promptly threw it out the door. But is he more of a chance of that bench spot because of his body size and his, let's call it, potential, and he can get an offload away, than an Addo-Carr or a Koloamatangi, because he's sort of a little bit more experienced, I guess? I don't know. I just don't know whether you can... Koloamatangi maybe a little bit more than Addo-Carr, get that 15 minutes of impact, which I think is what Madison would have to do if he got that position ahead of Addo-Carr. He's been good for 2 weeks, Matter.
Yeah, I know, mate, but I can't get past his debut.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
No, not good. Not good. There's a couple of things about him and his playing I'm not digging. So, yeah, I didn't even really consider him. I thought about his name, but I didn't consider him in that company anyway. I think New South Wales would need to be down on troops by 4 or 5 players before Maddo's name came back into
the utility spot. Let's wrap this up. You've got Jack Whiten. He's had one good game that I could think of, the game against Cronulla. Why him over a Reece Robson or a Coruscant? Is it Coruscant simply because he's playing for the Tigers? I don't think he's been that bad.
No, I don't think he's been that bad either. But Jesus, it's hard to pick anyone out of the Tigers, mate. I think they need to just concentrate on their club football, to be honest with you. And I know, but Appy hasn't been able to shine because they've just been going like bastards. I just see him as a frustrated player that is there, unfortunately for him. So the reason I went Whiten was because of what he's done in Origin before, but also I think when Whiten comes back from his latest suspension, probably with a renewed contract, his tail's probably going to be up. We know what he did in Origin last year. That wasn't really the credentials that you gave me when you assigned me this task. But
homework's changed halfway through.
Yeah. But Whiten will do the job, and he can play anywhere.
And he played right centre in the World Cup. Everyone needs to remember that. He was there. And would he get the job ahead of Burton, I guess is the question.
He gets my job ahead of Burton. I know Burton offers another he plays centre. He can play a little bit of 5'8", like Jack can. But I think that Jack would even fill in at lock or back row if he had to, or hooker, dummy half if he had to.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And Burton does offer that goal kicking if you need it. But I think we've got some goal kickers already. Well, we've got Teddy can goal kick, Turbo can goal. Latrell can goal
kick.
Hines, Cleary.
Mitchell,
we're covered for goal kickers.
And even Teddy can kick it if he has to. The final question for you. You got Reece Robson as an extra player.
I do.
Would you be tempted to run Whiten, Robson, Trebojevic, Campbell-Gillard and not pick Addo-Carr?
Nah. No, I think I like the classic bench of a all rounder and 3 forwards.
Gotcha.
I don't think an all rounder, then a hooker, and 2 forwards is going to get the job done. I think you want that push, that grunt off the bench, against Queensland, because they're just going to keep coming at you.
I'm going to throw out a couple of honorary mentions just based on form. Blake Laurie.
Sure.
How good's he been going? He's playing 60 minutes a week for the Dragons, doing everything for him, going really well.
Saints don't need to let him go and play Origin, mate.
The other one
Next.
that deserves a mention because he's turned his career around, I think, and he even got the captaincy on the weekend, is Wade Egan for the Warriors. He's made an impact to that team, and both Brayleys wouldn't let New South Wales down if they were picked, the 2 hookers. The other one that I think deserves some consideration, he's never going to play Origin, but his form is really, really good. And his chance would be if Cleary went down. No, he's not going to play Origin, but I'll say it. If Cleary went down and Hines went to halfback, Will Kennedy is playing great football for the Sharks at fullback. He won't play Origin, but I'm just saying from a form perspective, he does a wonderful job in that link role outside Hines. I just think he deserves a mention because he is playing great footy. But he ain't playing Origin.
You were saying before that you cooked yourself some nice steak for dinner. Did you also cook some hash cookies for dessert, and you've eaten them all?
I did have it's funny you say that because I did have a fortune cookie, and it does say. No. I was going to say these are New South Wales' chances for the year. I actually had this just before we got on, and I was saying, it'd be great if it was just like a thing about the world is your oyster and stuff.
Yeah,
it was. You may inherit a large sum of money. There you go. So
you may
that could be Brad Fittler's,
and you may not as well.
If he loses Origin this year and gets his payout, that could be how it ends up. That's been episode 289 on Not the Footy Show. It's our form New South Wales team after 5 rounds. Give you it again. Coxsmith has gone with Tedesco at fullback, Kiraz and Suali'i on the wings, Trebojevic, Mitchell and centres, Hines and Cleary are halves. No room for Jerome. The props: Payne Haas and Barlow, Damien Cook at hooker over Coruscant. Liam Martin, Cameron Murray, and they pretty much picked themselves in the back row with a bench of Jack Whiten, Ola Kawatu, Jake Trebojevic, and Regan Campbell-Gillard. If that is the team, Coxsmith, as we wrap the show up, can it beat Queensland? If that is the team?
Yeah, it won't be the team. We know that that's not going to be the team.
What?
But
I promised people this was going to be the team, man.
No, this is the form team. Of that team, I reckon 14 of them will be in old mate's team.
And to find out that 14, you're going to have to listen to the next New South Wales Origin podcast that we do, probably this time next week. We'll try and run.
We have special guest Brad Fittler on.
Oh,
no, we don't.
Actually, who can you get, Coxsmith? That's your challenge. There's your homework for the rest of the week. Who can you get on the pod next week to talk Origin? Ideally, someone who's played Origin. Happy if it's an old timer. I could probably make a few calls as well, but this is your job this week. I'm gonna reinforce the homework.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. If I can get a good old player to come on, I'll come to your place. You can make us some hash cookies, and we can talk for 4 or 5 hours. Because
I can promise
you and Will
promise fortune cookies
as well.
Well, Will's gonna be busy in a few weeks' time on a Wednesday night. I'm sure of it. You're doing really well, Will. No. This isn't a sledge, mate.
He is doing good. He's really well. He's doing a great job.
Smith doesn't like you.
He's
thrown you under the bus.
No, I do like him, but he's another guy that suffers from being a fullback.
We haven't even mentioned
when
Dylan Edwards.
Yeah, there's Dylan Edwards as well. What's he got to do to get in Origin?
And there's a guy called Alex Johnson who's going to be the all-time try-scoring wizard for club football. He's not even mentioned in the podcast. Anyway, we've run out of time. I've been Warrick Nicolson. That's been Rob Cox. Take us out, buddy. You got your Origin special, aren't you? Lucky.
I'll talk to you probably tomorrow, mate. Catch you later. Pepsi.
Not the Footy Show.
What about that from Queensland? I can't believe it. Unbridled joy on the sideline, and why not? That's not a try, that's a miracle.
Not the Footy Show.
We are one different.
Yep. What do you got?
Canberra aren't making the finals this year.
Oh, stop it. I'm hanging up. I got to go, mate. The bars are calling me. The honky tonks are playing my tune. What are you talking about?
Not the footy show. Show?
You been sleeping over there?
Pepsi.